You know, the most powerful thing you can do in your life isn't something loud or flashy. It's not something the world applauds right away. It's the quiet, consistent act of turning inward, of becoming deeply self-aware. Focusing on yourself starts with learning who you truly are beneath all the noise, and for most people, that's uncharted territory. We're trained to be so outward facing. From the time we're kids, we're graded, ranked, compared, liked, and followed. So it's no surprise that many of us build a version of ourselves that's entirely based on how we're perceived. But here's the truth. If you don't take the time to understand yourself, your triggers, your values, your insecurities, your patterns, then you're just reacting to life instead of intentionally living it. You're letting the world dictate your identity. Self-awareness is the beginning of freedom. Without it, everything you do becomes a performance. With it, everything you do becomes aligned. When you focus on yourself, it doesn't mean you're self-centered. It means you're self-accountable. You're no longer waiting for the world to fix you, save you, validate you. You're taking responsibility for your own growth. That shift is subtle, but it's powerful. It turns you from a passive participant into an active force. And the moment you become aware of that inner space, your thoughts, your feelings, your story, you gain access to something most people never touch: choice. The power to decide how you move, how you speak, how you carry yourself, not in reaction but with intention. Think about this: how many people go through life on autopilot? They repeat the same emotional loops, fall into the same conflicts, chase the same highs, avoid the same discomforts, all without realizing it. They say, "That's just how I am." But what they're really saying is, "That's how I've always coped." And that's where self-awareness changes the game. Because the moment you pause and examine your patterns, you take ownership of them. You stop being a product of your past, and you start becoming the architect of your future. Philosophers from every era have pointed to this. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." That wasn't just poetry, it was instruction. He was telling us that without introspection, we miss the whole point. We live based on inherited beliefs, untested assumptions, and buried wounds. But when you get curious about yourself, really curious, something shifts. You start asking better questions. Not just, why does this always happen to me? But what inside me keeps attracting or tolerating this? That's a different level of honesty, and that kind of honesty is rare. But it's the foundation for real confidence, because confidence isn't volume, it's not dominance, it's quiet alignment. It's knowing who you are and what you stand for so clearly that you're not easily swayed. You can walk into a room full of noise and still hear your own voice. You can receive praise without becoming arrogant and criticism without collapsing. That's what self-awareness gives you: equilibrium. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're present. And here's the practical truth: the more self-aware you are, the better your relationships become. Why? Because when you understand yourself, you stop projecting your issues onto others. You recognize when your ego is flaring up, when your fear is making decisions, when your insecurity is masking itself as control. And that makes you more compassionate, more grounded, more trustworthy, not just to others but to yourself. You stop abandoning yourself for acceptance. You stop shape-shifting to fit in. You show up whole and let the chips fall where they may. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Turning inward can be uncomfortable. It requires facing things you've buried. It demands silence in a world that rewards noise. But that silence is where transformation happens. You start to notice the voice beneath the opinions, the truth beneath the trauma, the strength beneath the survival. And when you find that, you no longer need to be everything to everyone. You just need to be fully you, authentically, unapologetically, consistently. So how do you begin? Start small. Ask yourself at the end of each day, what did I feel most strongly today and why? What triggered me? What inspired me? Where did I feel fake and where did I feel free? These aren't just reflections, they're revelations. Over time, they reveal the invisible script you've been living by. And once you see the script, you can start to rewrite it. Meditate, journal, reflect, take solo walks without your phone. Engage in conversations that challenge your assumptions. Read books that stretch your thinking. These aren't luxuries, they're tools for building a deeper, more resilient version of yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you'll always be at the mercy of those who do. And remember, self-awareness isn't a destination. It's a discipline. You don't arrive at full understanding. You commit to constant exploration. You stay curious. You stay humble. You stay awake to your own evolution. That's the essence of personal power, not control over others, but mastery of yourself. So if you're tired of chasing, comparing, pleasing, performing, come home to yourself. That's where the real work begins. That's where the noise fades and clarity rises. Because in a world obsessed with what's out there, the bravest thing you can do is focus on what's in here. If you want to know one of the fastest ways to lose your sense of direction in life, it's this: comparison. Comparing yourself to other people, their timeline, their success, their looks, their relationships, their energy, their confidence. It's subtle, it's everywhere, and it's corrosive. The moment you start comparing, you shift your attention from your own lane to someone else's. And that shift might feel harmless at first, motivational even, but over time, it dismantles your clarity, your confidence, and your sense of purpose. Now, this isn't just motivational theory. Psychologically, comparison is wired into us. The brain is constantly scanning the environment to understand where we fit in the social hierarchy. In evolutionary terms, this used to keep us safe. But today, it's become something else. It's no longer about survival, it's about significance. And that's where things get dangerous. Because when your sense of worth is tied to being more than or better than someone else, you've built your identity on something unstable. You've outsourced your self-worth to the shifting standards of the crowd. We do this all the time. You see someone post a promotion, and suddenly your job feels inadequate. You see someone's relationship highlight reel, and you start questioning your own. You see someone with a certain body, a certain lifestyle, a certain way of being, and you begin shrinking silently. Not because anything has changed in your life, but because someone else's life has entered your line of sight. And the thing is, you don't even know the full picture. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, your self-doubt to their curation. And yet, the emotion it generates is real: resentment, insecurity, self-judgment. But here's the philosophical truth. Comparison is a trap because it assumes life is linear and identical for everyone, as if we're all running the same race, with the same goals, the same resources, the same starting point. But we're not. Life is asymmetrical. It's layered. We each carry different burdens, different blessings, different timing. And once you realize that, you begin to understand that comparison isn't just unhelpful, it's irrational. You're measuring your path with someone else's ruler. You want to know what real peace feels like. It's when you stop needing to outdo anyone and start aiming to outgrow yourself. When the only person you're trying to be better than is the person you were yesterday. That kind of mindset isn't just healthy, it's empowering. Because now your journey becomes internal. It's not about how fast you're going, it's about how intentional your steps are. It's not about who sees you, it's about who you become when no one's watching. And I'll tell you something else: comparison will kill your creativity. The more you watch others, the less you hear yourself. You can't create from a place of insecurity. You can't lead from a place of envy. You can't evolve while constantly questioning your own value. That constant scanning, that mental measuring, it's exhausting. And worse, it's distracting. It takes you away from your own unique lane. Think about it: no one else has lived your exact life. No one else has your precise wiring, your specific mix of experiences, pain, strength, failure, and wisdom. So why would you ever think your path should look like theirs? Why would you assume your timeline is off just because it doesn't match someone else's? What if you're right on time? What if your so-called delay is actually your preparation? What if your journey is perfectly designed to shape you in ways no shortcut ever could? But you'll never see that if you keep looking sideways. And let's be clear, not all inspiration is comparison. There's a difference. Inspiration says, if they can do it, so can I. Comparison says, if they did it, I'm behind. One fuels you, the other fractures you. So you have to ask yourself, am I using this moment to rise or to retreat? Is this envy or aspiration, jealousy or curiosity? When you get honest about those answers, you regain your power. Here's something I've learned: your peace grows in proportion to your ability to stay in your lane. When you're anchored in your values, when you're aware of your worth, when you're focused on your purpose, you move differently. You're not rushing. You're not explaining. You're not competing. You're just doing the work every day, becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And what about the people who seem ahead of you? Respect them, but don't idolize them. Learn from them, but don't lose yourself in the process. They have their path. You have yours. Their win is not your loss. Their light doesn't dim yours. But if you let your mind twist their success into a weapon against your own self-worth, then you're fighting a war that was never meant to exist. The challenge is this: how do you stay committed to your vision when everyone else is flaunting theirs? You get grounded. You build rituals that pull you inward. You measure your progress by depth, not speed. You celebrate small wins without needing public applause. And most importantly, you remind yourself daily that your value is not up for debate. It's not on trial. It doesn't fluctuate based on external metrics. The more you anchor into that truth, the more immune you become to the noise. Because that's what comparison is. It's noise. It's background static that gets louder the further you drift from yourself. But when you're rooted, when you're focused, when you're clear, you stop letting that static shape your story. So if you've been caught in the loop of measuring, envying, questioning, let this be your invitation to break free. Look at your life not as a competition, but as a craft, something you're sculpting, refining, owning. Every setback, every delay, every detour, it all has meaning if you choose to see it that way. But you won't see it unless you stop looking at everyone else. If you really want to change your life, not just talk about change, but experience it, feel it, live it, then there's one principle you need to take seriously: daily investment in your own growth. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, not when life finally slows down or someone else motivates you. Every single day. Consistent personal development isn't flashy. It won't earn you applause right away, but over time, it rewires who you are at your core. Here's the problem most people face: they wait. They wait for clarity. They wait for motivation. They wait for circumstances to align perfectly. But growth doesn't wait for ideal conditions. It happens in real time, under pressure, in discomfort, and especially in silence. You want to know what separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's discipline, day in, day out, with no audience. That's where transformation happens. We've built a culture that overemphasizes results and underappreciates the process. We glamorize overnight success stories, but we skip the years of daily effort it took to get there. And in doing so, we've developed a kind of impatience with ourselves. We want growth to be immediate, obvious, easy. But real growth, authentic, sustainable, internal growth, doesn't shout. It whispers. It's not dramatic. It's cumulative. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing one thing consistently enough that it becomes a new way of being. Now think about this for a second. Where does your energy go each day? Because that tells you everything. Most people leak energy in 1,000 directions, reacting to distractions, overanalyzing failures, worrying about people's opinions, scrolling endlessly, consuming more than they create. It's not that they're not working hard, they're just not working on themselves. And that distinction makes all the difference. You have to realize your future is not something waiting for you out there. It's something you're building with your habits, your mindset, and your focus. Every day, you're casting votes for the person you're becoming. So ask yourself, what are you practicing every day? Doubt, comparison, excuses, or discipline, clarity, presence? Because repetition builds identity. Whatever you feed grows. Whatever you repeat becomes you. There's a psychological principle behind this. It's called neuroplasticity. Your brain literally rewires itself based on what you consistently think and do. That means you're not stuck. You're not limited to some fixed set of traits or talents. You can become sharper, more confident, more resilient, but not through wishing, through practice. And that practice starts with small, deliberate actions. Reading 10 pages, meditating for 5 minutes, choosing discipline over distraction, saying no to what drains you, saying yes to what builds you, even when it's uncomfortable. Here's the philosophical side of it. When you invest in yourself daily, you reclaim agency over your life. You stop living in reaction to the world and you start creating from within. You stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself direction. That's what focusing on yourself is truly about. Not selfishness, but Leadership. You become someone who doesn't just hope for better, you build it. Quietly, repeatedly, without needing applause. And let's be honest, some days you won't feel like it. Some days it'll seem pointless. You'll think, what's 5 minutes of journaling really going to change? Or, does one workout even matter? That's the ego talking. The part of you that only respects big, visible wins. But growth is rarely visible in the moment. It accumulates beneath the surface until one day everything shifts. Your mindset is sharper. Your patience is deeper. Your decisions are cleaner. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because you showed up for yourself when no one was watching. Consistency teaches you something powerful, that you can trust yourself. Most people don't realize it, but the root of low confidence isn't failure, it's inconsistency. It's saying you'll do something and then abandoning it. Over time, that chips away at your self-trust. But every time you follow through, even in the smallest way, you rebuild it. And that's the foundation of confidence. Not bravado, but integrity with yourself. That's what gives you quiet power. And the beautiful thing, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be committed. Growth doesn't demand flawlessness, it demands intention. If you miss a day, reset. If you get distracted, realign. The path isn't straight, but it's yours. And the more you walk it, the more momentum you build. And momentum, once you have it, becomes a force of its own. You also start to see how your habits bleed into every area of your life. You show up differently in relationships, in work, in conversations. You're less reactive, more grounded, less dependent on external praise, more driven by internal values. That's because growth isn't isolated. When you develop one part of yourself, everything else rises with it. Now I want to challenge you. What's one habit, just one, that if you did it every day for the next 90 days would fundamentally shift your identity? You probably already know what it is. You've probably told yourself you'd start next week, or when things settle down. But here's your wake up call: growth doesn't wait. And neither should you. There is no perfect moment coming. The only moment that holds power is the one you're in right now. The question is, what are you doing with it? You reach a point in your life, if you're paying attention, where you realize not everything deserves your energy. Not every opinion needs a rebuttal. Not every conflict needs your participation. And not every disruption deserves your peace. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you learn how to detach, not to disconnect from life, but to unhook yourself from the noise, the drama, the expectations, the battles that aren't yours to fight. Now, when I say detachment, I'm not talking about apathy. I'm not talking about indifference or avoidance. I'm talking about clarity. I'm talking about the conscious choice to step back and protect your mental and emotional space, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand what truly matters. There's a profound maturity in choosing peace over provocation, in responding instead of reacting, in observing instead of absorbing. You can't grow, really grow, if you're tangled up in every distraction that comes your way. And let's be honest, there's no shortage of them. People will test you. Circumstances will shake you. The world will pull at your attention and try to trap you in cycles that only drain you. The more you evolve, the more you'll be challenged to defend your evolution. And here's where detachment becomes a practice of self-respect. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to carry the emotional weight of other people's projections. See, the ego thrives on reaction. It wants to win. It wants to be seen as right, strong, superior. And when you're not self-aware, you fall right into that trap. You defend your position. You internalize other people's energy. You allow chaos to enter your mind like it belongs there. But when you've done the work, when you've built that inner calm from years of self-awareness and discipline, something shifts. You no longer see silence as weakness. You see it as strategy. You understand that not everything requires your voice to validate it. Philosophically, this is rooted in the idea of non-attachment, one of the central teachings in Stoicism, in Buddhism, even in modern psychology. Detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel fully, and yet you remain grounded. You experience emotion, but you're not ruled by it. You engage with life, but you don't get lost in it. That distinction is critical, because when you stop needing outcomes to look a certain way, you gain freedom. When you stop clinging to how things should you gain clarity. And this kind of peace isn't passive, it's fierce, it's built, it's earned. You cultivate it day by day, like a muscle. You say no more often, not just to others, but to your own impulses. You pause before responding. You question your automatic reactions. You choose boundaries over explanations. And you begin to see how much more powerful you are when you don't give everyone access to you. There's a point in your journey where growth becomes quiet, where healing becomes private, where your decisions are no longer made to be seen but to be lived. That's detachment. You stop chasing closure. You stop needing validation. You stop performing. You start being. And the irony, that's when people start noticing. That's when your energy shifts. Because you're no longer controlled by the external. You're anchored within. Now, I get it. This isn't easy. It's hard not to react when someone disrespects you. It's hard not to respond when someone misjudges you. But every time you take the bait, you give away your power. Every time you argue to be understood, you tether yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And that's the cost of constant engagement. It keeps you at war with yourself. So what do you do instead? You observe, you listen, you breathe. You don't take everything personally. You remember that not everything is about you. And most importantly, you remember that the way someone treats you is a reflection of them, not you. Their projection is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to guard your peace, your focus, and your integrity. And that brings us back to the whole point of this journey, focusing on yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a centered way. The more you focus inward, the less power the external world has over you. You realize that the real battle is internal. Can you remain calm in the storm? Can you stay focused while being misunderstood? Can you keep your vision clear even when others are loud? Because when you master detachment, you stop being reactive and you start being intentional. You stop being controlled and you start leading from within. You don't just grow, you evolve, not in appearance, not in accolades, but in how you carry yourself, how you protect your time, how you choose your peace over your pride. And let me be clear, there is nothing soft about that. It takes strength to walk away. It takes strength to stay silent. It takes strength to let people think what they want while you focus on becoming who you were meant to be. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. So the next time someone tries to pull you into a fight you didn't choose, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? The next time your mind starts spinning over things you can't control, ask yourself, is this helping me grow or keeping me stuck? And the next time you feel tempted to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds, ask yourself, what part of me still needs their permission to be at peace? Because once you realize you don't need to react to be strong, and you don't need to be loud to be heard, you become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because nothing controls you.